Have you ever wondered why reading might induce sleepiness? It's a question that's piqued the curiosity of many. Well, there's a myriad of reasons, both biological and psychological, that contribute to this phenomenon. Reading, a seemingly innocuous activity, can usher in a wave of drowsiness, making it a popular pre-bedtime ritual for some. But what's the science behind this? To put it simply, when we engage in an activity like reading, our body responds in fascinating ways. This response can be attributed to a variety of factors, ranging from the state of relaxation that reading promotes to the natural workings of our internal biological clocks. Not to mention, the mental effort required to process the words on a page can make us feel tired. So, now that we've set the stage, let's dive into the different factors that contribute to this phenomenon. First up, let's talk about our body's response to reading. When we're engaged in a relatively passive activity like reading, our body may enter a state of relaxation. This is where the parasympathetic nervous system comes into play. This part of our nervous system is responsible for what we call the rest and digest functions. When it becomes more dominant, it can lead to a decrease in our heart rate and blood pressure, as well as an overall decrease in physiological arousal. This creates a state that is conducive to sleep, essentially preparing our body for rest. Now, let's consider the role of our internal biological clocks, also known as our circadian rhythms. These rhythms regulate our sleep-wake cycles, essentially telling our bodies when it's time to be awake and when it's time to sleep. Reading, especially in the evening, can align with these natural rhythms. As the day winds down and evening sets in, our circadian rhythm signals to our body that it's time to wind down as well. The act of reading can reinforce this signal, helping our body prepare for sleep. But how exactly does reading align with our circadian rhythm? Well, as the light outside starts to fade, our body begins to produce melatonin, a hormone that promotes sleep. Engaging in a relaxing activity like reading can enhance this process, further signaling to our body that it's time to sleep. So, let's wrap up this part. When we read, our body enters a state of relaxation, thanks to the parasympathetic nervous system. This state is conducive to sleep, promoting a decrease in heart rate and blood pressure. At the same time, reading can align with our natural circadian rhythm, reinforcing the signal to our body that it's time to wind down and sleep. So, our body's natural systems and rhythms play a key role in inducing sleepiness when we read. In the next part, we'll delve into how melatonin release and eye fatigue can influence our feelings of drowsiness while reading. Stay tuned. Now, let's consider the role of light and our eyes in this process. When we expose our eyes to artificial light, like the light emitted from our screens or reading lamps, it can suppress our body's production of melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone that our bodies produce to regulate sleep. But here's a twist. If you're flipping through the pages of an old-school physical book under dim light, it might actually enhance the release of melatonin, making you feel drowsy. Now, let's not forget the toll that prolonged reading can take on our eyes. The act of reading strains the ciliary muscles in our eyes. These are the muscles responsible for adjusting the shape of the lens to focus on close objects. When these muscles tire, it can contribute to a sense of overall physical fatigue. Therefore, both the lighting conditions and the physical act of reading can contribute to feelings of sleepiness. Reading isn't just a physical activity. It involves our minds too. When we dive into a book, our brains are working hard to decode words, comprehend text, and even create mental images. This process, as fascinating as it is, requires a significant amount of mental effort. The more complex the material, the greater the cognitive load. Think about it. A scientific journal requires more mental exertion than a light-hearted novel. This mental effort can lead to cognitive fatigue, making us feel tired and, you guessed it, sleepy. Now, let's take a moment to talk about habits. Many of us have routines before we go to sleep. Brushing our teeth, setting an alarm, and for some, reading a book. This routine is more than just a list of tasks. It's a signal to our brains that it's time to wind down. If reading is a regular part of your bedtime ritual, your brain may have formed an association between reading and sleep. This association is powerful. Just the act of picking up a book might make you start to feel drowsy. It's a conditioned response, much like how we start to feel hungry when we see our favorite food. So our minds are also deeply involved in the sleep-inducing effects of reading. Finally, let's explore how our environment and emotions influence our sleepiness while reading. Imagine yourself nestled in a cozy nook with a book in hand and a warm blanket around you. The environment is quiet, the lighting is soft, and comfort is at its peak. Such an environment naturally induces relaxation, setting the stage for sleepiness to creep in. Now let's add another layer to this picture. The neurotransmitters in our brains. Reading can stimulate the release of serotonin, a neurotransmitter associated with mood and relaxation. It's like a natural sedative, urging the body and mind to unwind and prepare for sleep. So, as you turn the pages of your book, your brain is quietly working to make you feel more relaxed and calm. But what about the actual content of the book? Well, that plays a role too. Depending on the material, reading can evoke a range of emotional responses. If the story is calming or emotionally engaging, it can further contribute to a relaxed mental state. Think about the last time you read a heartwarming tale or a soothing piece of poetry. It likely left you feeling calmer, right? In conclusion, our surroundings, the chemical reactions in our brains, and our emotional engagement with the reading material all play a part in making us feel sleepy.